Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome. May I request all our guests to kindly take their seats. Also requesting for all mobile phones to be put on to silent mode. Thank you.
सारे स्पीकर आ गए क्या? शशि बहन से पूछ रहे हैं। पूछते हैं शशि से। आज समझ आ रही है कि शाम में यार बाकी सब आए थे। साथ में बट लोग नहीं बैठे हैं। अब 2-3 मिनट में ना अनाउंसमेंट शुरू करते हैं, बोलते हैं। मैंने एक बार तो अनाउंस किया है।
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, a very warm welcome. Requesting all our guests to kindly take their seats. All mobile phones to be put on to silent mode from now onwards. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, requesting everybody to kindly take their seats. All mobile phones to be put onto silent mode from now onwards. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to go ahead with the proceedings of the conference. Once again, requesting everybody to be seated, all mobile phones put onto silent mode, and all the exit doors to be closed, please. Thank you. Namaskar and good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of Bharat Exhibitions to the second edition of Open RAN India 2022, the hybrid conference. The conference will be a dynamic forum for senior executives of leading telecom operators, enterprises, and the government agencies to understand and formulate strategies to enhance the networks in line with business needs. Open RAN would definitely help Atmanirbhar Bharat movement, and some companies have already started showing momentum in this regard. For telecom players, it lowers the capex and the opex, brings in more efficiency and innovative solutions with quicker deployment of 5G. For software makers, it is an opportunity to build Make in India solutions for the ourselves by lighting the ceremonial lamp. And for the honors, I would request all the dignitaries, Mr. Ben Panic, Vice President, Telco Media and Entertainment, Red Hat, APAC, Mr. Shyam Mardikar, Group Chief Technology Officer, Mobility Reliance Jio, Mr. Kunal Bajaj, CEO and co-founder, Cloud Extel, Mr. Narendra Rawat, Vice President, Technology India and South Asia Region, Mavener, Mr. Saurabh Mittal, Head Network Infra Products, R&D, Bharti Airtel, Mr. Paul Miller, Chief Technology Officer, Wind River, Mr. Rajesh Singh, Executive Vice President, Radio and Strategy Planning, Vodafone Idea, Mr. Rajat Mukherjee, DG Broadband India Forum, and Mr. Shashidharan, MD Bharat Exhibitions. And ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for the ceremonial inauguration of today's hybrid conference. Thank you, gentlemen, for doing the honors. I would now request the dignitaries to kindly take their seats on the stage. May I invite Mr. Ben Pennick, Vice President, Telco Media and Entertainment, Red Hat, APAC, to kindly grace the stage with your presence, sir. Let's put our hands together to welcome him. May I invite Mr. Shyam Mardikar, Group Chief Technology Officer, Mobility Reliance Jio. A very warm welcome to you, sir. May I invite Mr. Kunal Bajaj, CEO and co-founder, Cloud Xtel. A warm welcome to you, sir. I invite Mr. Narendra Rawat, Vice President, Technology, India and South Asia Region, Mevanir. A warm welcome to you, sir. I invite Mr. Saurabh Mittal, Head Network, Infra Products, R&D, Bharti Airtel. A very warm welcome to you, sir. I invite Mr. Paul Miller, Chief Technology Officer, Wind River. A warm welcome to you, sir. I invite Mr. Rajesh Singh, Executive Vice President, Radio and Strategy Planning, Vodafone Idea. A very warm welcome. Invite Mr. Rajat Mukherjee, Director General Broadband India Forum. A warm welcome to you, sir. And of course, we have with us on the stage Mr. Shashidharan, Managing Director, Bharat Exhibitions. And ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to request Mr. Rajat Mukherjee, Director General Broadband India Forum, to kindly begin the proceedings of this conference with his welcome address.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. May I request all of you to please take your seats, those who are standing behind, and those who are standing outside, please ask them to come inside. There's so many people standing outside. Before Rajat gives his welcome speech, I would like to congratulate the telecom fraternity under the cabinet, Indian cabinet ministry. The entire cabinet has approved the 5G auction under the leadership of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji. So a big welcome and big congratulations to all of you. I know Shyam is getting and every operators are getting busy now how to auction for this, participate in the auction. So it's a big move in the Indian telecom industry where we will see 5G a reality. Now I request Rajat to give the welcome speech.
Very warm welcome to everyone and our Honorable Chief Guest, Sri K. Rajaraman, Chairman of the Digital Communications Commission and Secretary Telecommunications, Government of India. Distinguished members of the industry on the dais, my friend Shashidharan, Managing Director of Bharat Exhibitions, delegates from the government, friends from the industry, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I am most privileged and very honored to be invited here today to deliver the welcome address at this second Open RAN India 2022 hybrid conference with the theme Future of Radio Access Networks, organized by Bharat Exhibitions with Broadband India Forum as the knowledge partner. Open RAN, also more popularly sometimes known as O-RAN, is a term used for industry-wide standards for RAN, which is radio access networks. The interfaces that support interoperability between equipment belonging to different vendors. And it helps to offer a higher degree of openness, flexibility, efficiency, and lower capex to the telecom operators and eventually lower the total cost of operation to benefit the end user. This is the age of breaking down of walled gardens and closed watertight networks, designed, engineered, sourced, and deployed by a single turnkey supplier or vendor. In the past, we used to have these very large public networks which were built and maintained by vendors like, in the olden days, Bell, Nortel, Siemens, Ericsson, Nokia. However, over a period of time and with the advent of it, we have seen the evolution of an open source, the open architecture, and the breaking of this umbilical cord between the network owner and the single supplier or vendor. I'm reminded about a period years ago when devices first came into the market and they were launched with their own proprietary OS. Nokia had Symbian, Apple, of course, had its own OS, and Microsoft was trying to get into smartphones. Today, more than 85% of all the world's devices have Android, which is an open source. Similarly, these are the kind of impacts which are being seen here in the Open RAN environment, which results in an open ecosystem, results in more innovation and more options for the operators. In an Open RAN network architecture, it is third-party products that communicate with the main RAN vendors' infrastructure. But if I were to summarize the key benefits, they would be diversification, introduction of new innovation, reduction in the total cost of ownership, and the unlocking of new revenue opportunities in cellular network operators. But let me not necessarily bore you with those details. I'd like to stop here and let the more knowledgeable subject matter experts provide you with more detailed insights into this technology and its numerous benefits. In conclusion, let me just say this, that with this technology evolution of O-RAN, this has come at a time when we can begin our 5G journey. Given the fact that 5G requires intense densification, a technology breakthrough like O-RAN could play an instrumental part in ensuring its successful use in India. I look forward to the upcoming deliberations during the entire course of the conference today, enhancing my own understanding and knowledge about the subject through them, and I wish this event every success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for those warm words of welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, our honorable chief guest for today, Shri K. Rajaraman, IAS, Chairman DCC and Secretary Telecom, Department of Telecommunications, Government of India, is present with us on the virtual mode, and we welcome him warmly. Let's put our hands together to welcome him. A very warm welcome to you, sir. And may I hand over to you, sir, for your address. Over to you.
Thank you, and very good morning to all of you. Distinguished members on the dais, colleagues from various organizations, including the industry and Department of Telecommunication, the other government departments, and so on and so forth. Friends from the media, research community, service providers, and so on and so forth. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, a very warm and good morning to all of you. I'm honored to be part of this event to deliver a keynote address on this O-RAN event, and thank the organizers, the Broadband India Forum and Bharat Exhibitions, for these for organizing a very timely conference. As global networks are gradually heading towards expanding 5G services, Government of India has also announced yesterday the 5G spectrum auctions, and a rollout is expected sometime in August of this year. This promises to be a big step forward in creating a strong foundation for the growth of India's digital economy and Industry 4.0 revolution. With some programs like Startup India and Make in India, spearheaded by the Honorable Prime Minister, we expect big economic gains for 5G in terms of innovation and driving the use of these digital economy tools to grow the various sectors. Incidentally, 5G promises to be the first time where every sector has the opportunity to use it to actually drive new services, new products, new experience for customers and for the industry players as well. For all this to happen, innovation must be enabled and supported. Networks will have to evolve and transform to meet this increasing demands and expectations. From closed and proprietary legacy networks, network design and architecture is evolving and transcending towards open radio access networks. The concept of O-RAN is used for more open radio access network architecture than provided today by telcos in their existing networks. O-RAN is a term used by the industry-wide standards for RAN interfaces that support interoperability between vendors, equipment, and offer network flexibility at a lower cost. The main purpose of O-RAN is to have an interoperability standard for RAN hardware and software, which can be purchased from different vendors. This will enable network operators avoiding getting stuck with a proprietary architecture and leading to perhaps higher costs and lack of flexibility. This is likely to, therefore, this movement is therefore likely to promote greater flexibility for operators as well as for consumers, as well as for designers and manufacturers higher efficiencies, and thereby leading to reduction in the cost of network elements and enabling better consumer services. The advantages of Open RAN are manifold. An Open RAN environment means an expanded ecosystem with more vendors providing the building blocks. It is expected to usher in more innovation and more options for the operator. They can also add new services, new designs, and serve new kinds of customers. Some of the other benefits include more market competition and increase in customer choice, lower equipment costs, and improved network performance. In an Open RAN environment architecture, third-party products can communicate with the main Open RAN vendors' infrastructure. Network operators can also opt for less expensive third-party products that operate on generic and not proprietary hardware. As network operators look to transition to ORAN architecture for 5G using Open RAN interfaces, they can hope to reduce cost of deployment in this highly competitive market. In India, I'm happy to note that many startups and industry players have already taken the challenge head-on and have commenced work on ORAN. VVD and Kia Labs and many others have developed components, which includes the radio unit, TU, CU, etc. CDOT has formed. CDOT is our premier research telecom research institution. It has formed an ORAN consortium and is working towards developing an ORAN testbed. It has also signed up MOUs in 4 different formats, and we hope that more Indian domestic companies will be able to come on board this India ORAN Alliance to develop India-specific ORAN stacks over the next year or so. There are many groups spearheading ORAN mission globally. The ORAN Alliance is leading the charge with its mission to reshape the RAN industry towards a more intelligent, open, and fully interoperable mobile network. By supporting open specification standards, ORAN Alliance hopes to create a more competitive marketplace for 5G radio technology that drives more innovation while driving down prices, much like what GSM did for the radio system. ORAN specifications will enable a more competitive and vibrant RAN supplier ecosystem with faster innovation to improve user experience. ORAN-based mobile networks will improve the efficiency of RAN deployments as well as the operations of mobile operators. I'm happy to note that telecom service providers like Bharti Airtel, Jio, as well as academic and research institutions like Amrita, etc., are all part of such international alliances. I hope that this will lead to greater traction in terms of developing India's own ORAN stack. If one were to summarize the key benefits of ORAN, they would be diversification of the supplier ecosystem, introduction of new innovation models, reduced total cost of ownership, and helps unlock new revenue opportunities in cellular networks through the process of shared neutral costing. The market for ORAN, which disaggregates the RAN portion of the mobile network, thus traditionally has been a subject to inflexible single vendor approach, is expected to surge over the next 6 years. A research company has predicted that 85% of the compound annual growth rate during that period has put the expected market value at $22 billion by 2028. In conclusion, I would like to say that this technology evolution of ORAN could not have come at a more opportune time as we are about to begin our 5G journey. Given the fact that 5G requires extreme densification, a technology breakthrough like ORAN is extremely welcome as it helps increase the network efficiencies, increase flexibility, and reduce cost. I urge and hope all the network operators, both the public and private networks here, will adopt this technology, making 5G services cost competitive and innovative. Thank you, and Jai Hind.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for that informative inaugural address. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I have the proud privilege in inviting for the operator keynote address, our distinguished and eminent speaker, Mr. Shyam Mardikar, Group Chief Technology Officer, Mobility Reliance Jio. Let's put our hands together to welcome him. Over to you, sir.
Morning, respected chief guest, friends on dais, and all present here. I think it's great to be back on this mix of real virtual thing. I think one of those conferences after 2 years when you actually have to fully dress for the conference. Otherwise, it's been wherever you are. Can we switch on the presentation, please? So what I want to do is, and we have many experts here and speakers here. What I want to do over the next 10-12 minutes is just to take you through couple of concepts, seed couple of thoughts into your head so that we understand where we are going with this huge disruption around this whole Open RAN technology architecture and how this is going to change the way we operate, not only as an operator or as a partner, but the overall industry ecosystem. And what are those 2, 3, 4 fundamental driving forces which are going to change the way this is going to usher in? And finally, the challenges which we need to be aware of, because if you look at the way telecom has exploded, specifically in this country, we started with voice in the first decade of the century. Then we started with data in the second decade. 3G and 4G blossomed. We are now one of the biggest data consuming geographies in the world. Highest per capita consumption, highest total consumption, barring China, of course, which we believe we'll be able to overtake very soon. And this is just on 4G. So you can imagine if 5G, and Shashi has this knack of timing these conferences just the day after the NIA was released. So I think it is very well captured there. So let me start from there. Next, do I have a clicker or something here? So if you look at Open RAN, I think one of the first things which we need to realize is people are not looking at it in a uniform manner. Thank you. Everybody has his own or her own view of what Open RAN is. I mean, people are looking at cost efficiencies, people are looking at driving intelligence into the system, people are looking at disaggregation, breaking the hardware and the software paradigm, creating new management practices, and most of them at this point of time, as the technology evolves, architecture evolves, deployments evolve, most importantly, they actually then get converged on what exactly is Open RAN. So we know it is RAN, we know it is open, but how does it actually kind of culminate into something which is different than the radio access network of yesteryears? And just in addition to being different, what is the actual value added it gives to? So that's something which I wanted to start with. And if you look at what is changing in the industry, and I keep on harping upon these 3 specific attributes, which I call as the holy trinity of communication. Erstwhile communication dependent on connectivity. But ever since internet has broken loose and the digital revolution has happened, with devices being intelligent, with applications being intelligent, there are 2 more fundamental entities which are now becoming the bedrock of this whole communication ecosystem. And this trinity is, of course, it starts with connectivity, which is now hyper, which is now extremely dense, which is now closer to the customer. But then it is also aided with 2 more important erstwhile IT-centric capability, now getting totally embedded in telecom, called compute and storage. So moving from connectivity only communication system to an ecosystem which is a triangulation of connectivity, compute, and storage is where we are going. And the moment we realize that, we understand that this will actually make 2 or 3 very fundamental changes in the way networks will get operated upon. You will be able to actually place the compute ecosystem and the storage ecosystem in a coexistent way on connectivity itself. So you don't need to have a faraway. So cloud started it. But when cloud started it, there was cloud and then there was connectivity. There were 2 fundamental paradigms at that point of time, that you have your compute and your storage in the cloud, and then that cloud connects you to some kind of window which enables you to access whatever the compute and storage capability has. Now that cloud itself is getting disaggregated, and part and parcel and portions of those particular cloud elements are now getting embedded on the connectivity. So the radio will have its own share of compute and storage. The mobile edge data centers will have their own. And this distribution will drive the next paradigm of experience, the paradigm around latency, the paradigm about hyperspeed, the paradigm about quality of network. All of that now is getting broken up into these 3. And this will drive what we call the networks as the programmable network, because connectivity was just a bare pipe. Now, if you add compute and storage, then now you are able to control the way the network delivers to the device, the way the network delivers to human being, the way the network delivers to enterprise. So people, enterprise, and devices, all the 3 consumers of this ecosystem will now get benefited by having compute and storage exactly on top of connectivity. And this disruption is radical. And this disruption is what this decade will take us through going forward. Open RAN is just one of the most important concepts of this. So if you look at what are those 4 or 5 technology drivers which are actually driving this, and why did it happen now, and why logically it didn't happen maybe with 4G or maybe a couple of years ago or last decade. Disaggregation I've been speaking of. See, there is a slight difference between the word disaggregation and the word virtualization. We have been, and IT folks and most of you, as I know, we've been working on virtualization projects since decades, more from an IT-centric perspective. And virtualization was just kind of using COTS hardware and putting applications on top of it. But disaggregation goes one step further. Disaggregation actually breaks those capability into functional modules. And then you are now able to populate those functional module depending on the relevance of that module on the geography where it operates, for the customer it operates for, or for the service it is operating. And that is very, very powerful, because if you are then able to create a functional module which delivers what it wants to deliver for a specific service, you can optimize it, performance enhance it for just that particular service. And then it does not need to have any downstream or upstream dependencies going forward. That's disaggregation for you. Open interfaces. The moment you disaggregate, the biggest thing you require is how do you connect those disaggregated modules? And unless you have a very open, standard, simple way of interconnecting them, you will actually have these islands of disaggregated intelligence and capability not talking to each other. To make that work, from disaggregation, the open interfaces come. And these open interfaces then can, and Secretary mentioned a while back that we are talking about a module from an entity A and a module from an entity B, totally coming down to create one particular service, but they won't talk and they won't deliver this service if they're not connected to each other on a standard and an open interface. So open interface is the second big value proposition which this whole open ecosystem brings. Third is conventional virtualization. How do you pool the resources? So you have X compute, Y storage. Can you use that to distribute and virtualize and service multiple modules wherever you can pool those resources? This drives a different level of cost and resource efficiency, if I may, on the system. So that goes after your disaggregation and connectivity happens. And then comes the most important part of it, driving intelligence into the system. And this programmable intelligence coming from AI, coming from ML, this is going to power the engine, which is distributed, which is disaggregated, still connected in a very, very seamless manner, still connected in a very open manner so that entities can talk to each other, entities can elastically manage themselves going forward. And not only manage themselves, sell, feel, performance manage, service manage, adapt to traffic, adapt to customer need, adapt to devices. All of that will come from this layer where AI ML is not only capturing what is happening on that particular module, but intelligently analyzing it and then delivering the best possible outcome. And the last but not the least, and Rajat very briefly alluded to it in his welcome, is about this hyper densification post 5G. We need to get closer to the customer. The customer could be a device, customer could be an enterprise location, customer could be a machine itself. It could be a car or it could be a washing machine or whatever it is. How do you make sure that there is a deployment model which is modular enough, cost effective enough so that this distribution, and all of us in our past lives over past decades, we have actually created telecom networks, and you know the capex intensive nature of this industry. It is not only about the cost of spectrum, it is about cost of data centers, cost of optical fiber, the kind of power and energy we spend on powering up each one of these components. I mean, that is humongous capex. Now, if that capex has to be multiplied 10 times over for a densification 10 times over, it will fall on its own under its own weight. So there has to be a better and a modular way to deploy it. And this is the other thing which this open architecture gives us, that you don't need to carry the whole jingbang to the last mile. Break it up into very smart, break it up into very delivery-centric modules, cost-effective modules, energy-effective modules. Energy is big, carbon footprint perspective also, and from cost of consumption also. Energy infrastructure optimized modules. How do you get all of these together and then drive this? And this is going to usher in that era of programmability. And now if you relate, I hope I can get back using this. Yes. So if you look at the linking of this hyper connectivity versus hyper compute versus hyper storage to these 5 paradigms, then we realize how is this breakup in a very smart, intelligent manner actually going to kind of usher in the capability. Now, what is stopping us? Why are we not going to convert this? Why are we not able to convert this tomorrow? What is holding us back? First and foremost, the moment you have more than one moving part, You need somebody else to come and stitch it together. The so-called conventional system integration issue. Now, system integration, and again, I think since we have this historical precedence of integrating huge data centers and such like capabilities, what is different with this kind of integration? This kind of integration is different because it actually goes at least 2 technical layers below conventional integration. You are talking about integration of software and hardware, and you are talking about integration of the management layer, which will performance optimize it. And that could not be done unless you have a very, very specific insight on the domain which you are integrating and on the capabilities which you are integrating. So the industry is coming together, there are capabilities being built, there are centers for excellence getting built. But I think first and foremost is this deployment. The simpler the outcome gets, the more complicated the underlying deployment gets. And here, if we have the right set of machinery, man and machine, to kind of drive these integration, I think this will become the first pillar of the success of something like ORAN. Second, and those who are familiar with radio engineering and RF engineering, one of the most important tenets of a successful radio engineering is what we call as optimization. I mean, radio is nothing without optimization. And all of us who've grown up as RF engineer, the only thing which we have been told is just radiating does not help it. You will have to optimize it. Otherwise, it's just noise to the device. And this optimization has been happening on a monolithic radio so far. And that is why I'm trying to highlight this point. Now, optimizing a monolithic radio which has everything integrated, the hardware integrated, the baseband integrated, the CPRI integrated, you just need to have the scheduler integrated on the software level. So 80% of it from that perspective is pre-integrated. You are just trying to optimize it for what it radiates. Now, if you break these 4 capabilities out, scheduler is coming from some other entity. The physical layer is coming from some other entity. Physically, they are both different. Interconnect is behaving from in a different manner. Now, how do you now inculcate these capabilities into optimization? So performance managing, and then the conventional finger pointing happens. My unit is working fine. It is hardware that is failing. Hardware is perfect. There is a problem with the software. Yeah, there is some interference coming in the interconnect, and hence the signer is bad. Any of these things could happen, and we have heard all of this even in our current ecosystem. Now imagine when this gets broken, what kind of chaos, if not managed properly, it is created. So performance is one of the biggest. So who will integrate it and who will performance manage it? I think that will get it closer to the deployment. And then the most important part, which we've been highlighting for now years around, specifically in the Indian context for telecom as an industry, we are talking about infrastructure readiness. If you are talking about physically distributed modules, if you are talking about geographically disparate capabilities, how do you connect them with a reliable infrastructure? Is power reliable? Is fiber reliable? Because now one blip in any part of the infrastructure can actually have a cascading impact on the systems which are underlying dependent on that infrastructure. So you create a BBU cloud somewhere, and that BBU cloud gets isolated. You are suddenly losing connectivity to every G node B and E node B that is connected to that BBU cloud. That is infrastructure. If there is a power outage, if there is a connectivity outage, and we are all, and again, kudos to all of us together as an industry, because I was talking to somebody last week in a discussion about power and energy, and it is a very proud feeling to tell them that the availability of our network to our customer is significantly ahead of what the conventional electricity supply availability to their customers is. We have power outages in our houses, in our homes, long outages in parts of rural India, in other states and all of that. But the mobile phone works. So there is something that is powering the site in spite of the electricity not available to it. So we've done wonders around creating alternate sources, solar, diesel generators, and such like. But unless this infrastructure, which is the bedrock to carry this, is kind of stable, is kind of seamless, this will not be a success. So and this also highlights the other big point on the infrastructure portion. There is a very sweet spot of coupling between the technology and the architecture. an architecture is more akin to the topology here in this scenario. If the topology is not supporting that technology, the technology will be by itself without any foot on the ground to justify itself. And this is exactly what the infrastructure backdrop gives us, that unless I have seamless 100% connectivity, 100% energy availability, putting one module here and second module here is definitely not going to function. It will be costly, it will be interrupted, it will be, the service will be bad, short. The other big thing is cost. And I have actually flipped this famous statement. I think Aristotle made this statement that whole is always more than sum of the parts. That was Aristotle. But in this scenario, at the beginning, sum of parts is definitely more than whole. If I create a monolithic system today, a conventional RAN today, it is definitely going to cost me cheaper than taking 5 different components and trying to integrate if you look at the total cost of ownership. TCO has been, and we will have good discussions during the day, TCO has been one of the biggest selling points for Open RAN. But we still have to actually cross that bridge before it actually flips in the commercially in favor of it. And that will, it is not that it's not going to come, but it is going to come when economies of scale are realized, when seamlessness of technology is realized, when energy efficiencies are realized, when our ability to integrate it seamlessly is realized. Today, the cost of service itself in creating an ORAN, item number 1, system integration, itself will by far exceed a lot of cost items in the conventional RAN. So how do we break this cost paradigm? This is the fourth challenge. And last challenge, again, like anything with multiple moving parts, the weakest link in the chain is the hindrance for evolution and growth. You can get the best of the radios, but if the interfaces, the APIs are not ready, you can get best of the APIs, but if physical layer is not performing. You can get all of these best, but if your virtualization engine or disaggregation engine or orchestrator is not functional, that will pull the whole performance down. So here again, I mean, unlike the customer side performance, the technology side performance will be limited by the weakest link. Now, how do we drive that? How do we make sure that we are in step? The cloud is in step with hardware, the cloud is in step with the hypervisor is in step with the network function is in step with the orchestration. One of them kind of blips and you're gone there. So these are very real, and none of these challenges is anything which we cannot overcome. But if we are aware of this as an industry together, we pick up each one by one, we align ourselves to one fundamental outcome, that we will be able to create a network which is programmable, we'll be able to create a network which is scalable and densifiable, we'll be able to create a network which is cost effective. I think this is going to add tremendous value in the mobile networks of the future. So in my last chart, in the light of programmable network, the Jedi call of may the source be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for that very interesting and informative keynote presentation. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for the next keynote address, I have the privilege in inviting our eminent speaker, Mr. Ben Panic, who's the Vice President, Telco, Media and Entertainment, Red Hat APAC. Over to you, sir, for the keynote address.
Thank you. Well, it's a privilege and a pleasure to be here today. I'm really excited finally to be able to spend time face-to-face with all of you. I think the timing is impeccable, with the announcement yesterday of the forthcoming 5G spectrum auctions. We couldn't have timed this event any better. And I must say, I'm really excited about what is upon us in terms of 5G Edge and Open RAN. For me personally, as I look back over the last 25 years, I can't think of a time where I'm more excited about the opportunity for all of us as an industry. So the power of open. It's an exciting time for India. Not only are we on the precipice of the start of the 5G deployments with the spectrum auction, we're also able to leverage Made in India. For software startups, there are abundant opportunities, from O-RAN to the countless edge use cases that will be developed to help us monetize the network. The open nature of 5G networks lends itself to the hyper competition that we all need to see in the industry. On a global scale, it's going to enable our industry to monetize 5G and ensure that, that we build a network that we can monetize and that others can't necessarily capitalize on. We believe open source is the catalyst for innovation. It enables flexibility and choice. The intersection of the open source community and the open source environment that is stable, secure, and reliable is Red Hat. We place a priority on our partner ecosystem. It's what provides the operators with choice, flexibility, and the opportunity to innovate. And it's that choice that's going to enable new revenue streams and open the O-RAN world up. So today I'd like to share a little bit more about how we see O-RAN developing and the opportunity for India. So people are the single most important part of everything we do today and into the future. We see that just this morning, being able to communicate face-to-face. I hosted a webinar last week by STL Research across the APAC region, and we did research that included India and many countries, and the message was clear. We need to develop our people. We need to reshape our programs to harness the opportunity in the cloud-centric world. As we develop our 5G networks, we need to deploy new platforms. We need to become more cloud-centric, and the technology changes. The decisions that we make today and in the coming months will drive our network for the future. And we must focus on our people, our culture, and our business processes. The scale that we're going to drive with 5G and Open RAN is going to dwarf what is there in today's macro networks. So I like to ask the question, who owns the platform of tomorrow in the 5G network? Where does the skill set lie? Is it a new team? Is it a current team? Or is it a team that we need to retrain? Wrapping all of this together is a need to now rely and drive on mass automation at scale. When we deploy and deliver O-RAN, we're going to do it on a scale that's an order of magnitude larger than today. It's going to dwarf the macro networks of the 3G and the 4G world. And we're going to need things like AI ops to help us drive that to a reality. So when we look at Open RAN, we see three pillars that tie everything together: network transformation and evolution. And we've been undertaking this for years. If I think back to NFV, we've been driving this virtualization change. Now we move towards the containerization of applications and the cloudification of that network. So we know that cost is an important factor, especially here in India. And I think we all rise each day thinking about how can we lower the cost? How can we drive a better cost model and a TCO in our networks? Ultimately, though, and this is where I get the most excited, I believe that the change is going to come from driving new revenues, from network slicing to private 5G and the edge use cases that will be enabled via the 5G network. These are going to deliver net new revenue streams. And this has been sadly lacking for us in the industry. So wrapping all of this up is the need for us to consider, how do we plan for automation on a scale that we have not considered before? With that site count increasing by an order of magnitude to provide the dense 5G coverage that we're going to need, we need to factor in automation programs, and we need to live and breathe automation at scale. As an industry, we see that Open RAN is gaining support. Over 2/3 of operators surveyed believe that it's an important strategic priority, and we see this accelerating. The opportunity to leverage Open RAN globally increases as operators look to disaggregate their networks. Leveraging on their work in NFV over the past 5 to 7 years, we see that acceleration of the multi-vendor network from hardware through to software, providing operators with the flexibility and choice to adopt new internal workloads on a common cloud and also to service Industry 4.0. So as we look into the O-RAN market, what we can see that technology is already being adopted. We see that here today. By the time we get halfway through the current decade, the industry will be spending over $7 billion. And as we move through 2023, we see a sharp increase in spending as we move through that proof of concept and testing phase and begin to roll out production and mass deployment. So I believe that we should also use the time ahead of us to consider how we deploy these new technologies. In a world that is becoming more cloud-centric, we should look to adopt new practices as we move through traditional proof of concepts. We should ask ourselves the question, how can we get more efficient in proof of concepts? How do we move out of that legacy world, and how do we drive the adoption of new technology faster than we did previously as an industry? So the benefits of ORAN are transformative, and the operational efficiency that comes from a common platform is definitely going to change the way we deploy and operate the networks. That disaggregation reduces the cost of building the RAN. We're going to have to drive to that. It's going to need scale for us to achieve that, but we're on our way. And our work on a common platform from core to edge so that we can improve that operational efficiency and not having to run multiple platforms. And again, let's think about this in the same way that the cloud providers do, right? Build a single platform and leverage off that. As we consider the decisions that we make in the network from core to edge, it's those decisions that become critical today. The hardware choices for the edge are constrained by power, real estate, capacity, and cooling. The right platform decisions that we make now affect our ability to deploy and develop those multi-vendor environments and thus monetize our networks into the future. Being open matters. We learned from that DIY era in OpenStack. It was not as easy as some would have wished. I often ask people to ensure that they focus on their core talents, focus on your core business. Don't try to be everything to everyone. Focus and deliver on what you do best. So at Red Hat, we believe that platform decision needs to serve all of your workloads, both internally focused and externally focused. Our history as a company is built on being open. Our OpenShift platform today serves many thousands of enterprise and telecommunications customers. And we've been at this for years, contributing to the community, leading the way in providing inputs from you as an industry back to that community to share the open source product. And it's part of our DNA. From core to edge, large clusters to single node OpenShift architecture, we've been influencing the design and deployment in the community for your benefit. So as we cloudify the network, the IT infrastructure, as we collapse multiple platforms into one, we are very aware that we need to provide a flexible platform for you to adopt. From on-premise to public cloud, OpenShift spans each design requirement to serve you and provide you with the flexibility that you need. So as an industry, and this is where I think it's a powerful part for us, we're leading the world in edge solutions. Telco and the 5G macro world really drives the first at-scale deployment of edge around 5G. It underpins where we'll go in terms of new industrial use cases that deliver those new revenue streams. Adjacent to ORAN and really leading the infrastructure and the common platform that the industry will deploy are Industry 4.0 use cases. It's these new ideas that will be generated that will drive net new revenue streams that add to our bottom line. And I think those net new revenue streams are really the catalyst for us to monetize that investment that's going to be made in the network from core to edge through to the spectrum. When we look at why CSPs are investing in ORAN, a number of things jump out. Cost is not the biggest factor. And this resonates with me. If you think back to NFV, it all started out with it's going to lower the costs, and that shift really moved to drive choice, flexibility, and efficiency. Secondly, increasing flexibility in solutions and new service revenue, they basically tied for second and third here. Having to take time to the market, and not only in ORAN, but also in Industry 4.0 use cases. Choice in your partners is a critical decision criteria. It's going to affect what you could do in the future. And at the top, we see faster control of feature development in ORAN is the #1 reason that operators are exploring that technology, not being locked in to a legacy solution. Having an opportunity to influence roadmaps and features is critical as CSPs look to take their 5G network deep into that network for the delight of their customers. So at Red Hat, the ecosystem is really important. We see that need for choice, feature input, and a flexible solution as a critical part to your business. For decades, we've worked closely with our partners across all of our open source technologies to ensure that you, the customer, have the access to build the technology and solutions you need to differentiate your business and take new market offers. As we move towards ORAN, we see that our partner ecosystem for radio certainly becomes more diverse. Traditional NEPs have been joined by ISVs and new software-centric companies born in the cloud era, some here in India, all are able to provide solutions for your business needs. And I think those SIs and the global SIs become very critical as we look for someone to be able to deliver that end-to-end solution for us as an industry. So as I close and I circle back to the three major themes for today, people matter. We need to think carefully about that culture and talent, how we develop that and how we best align to the changing and evolving requirements of the digital service provider. As we have seen from the industry research, flexibility matters. Without it, we find it hard to innovate and differentiate. And finally, that diverse ecosystem of partners is really needed to provide the digital service provider with choice when it comes to their partner selection. So thank you for your time today. I'm more excited about the opportunity in front of us than any time in the last 25 years. ORAN's going to drive the evolution of our networks, and it opens up core to edge and choices for us as an industry. Let's leverage the power of open. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for that keynote address. And now, ladies and gentlemen, before we move into the panel discussion session, I would request Mr. Shashidharan to kindly do the honors of presenting a small token of gratitude and appreciation to our eminent speaker, Mr. Shyam Mardikar. Mr. Mardikar has to take leave for another appointment. Thank you very much indeed, sir, for sparing your time and being here with us and for that wonderful keynote presentation. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, we now move ahead with the panel discussion session for the inaugural session. And I now have the proud privilege in introducing our eminent panelist of this session. Our distinguished moderator for this session is Mr. Kunal Bajaj. He's CEO and co-founder Cloud Xtel, has 22 plus years of experience in the telecom, internet, and the technology space. His past experiences have been, he has been the partner and director India at Analysis Mason, founder of the company acquired by AM, advisor at TRI, director on the board of 197 and Paytm, previously worked at McKinsey and Company of New York, Geo 3X startup, and he has education of University of Pennsylvania, Wharton and Engineering Schools, graduated honors with bachelor's in computer science, master's in telecommunications, and networking management and finance bachelor's. And amongst the eminent panelists, we have with us Mr. Rajesh Singh, who is Executive Vice President, Radio and Strategy Planning, Vodafone Idea. Mr. Ben Panic, Vice President, Telco Media and Entertainment, Red Hat APAC. Mr. Narendra Rawat, Vice President, Technology, India and South Asia Region, Mevanir. Mr. Saurabh Mittal, Head Network, Infra Products, R&D, Bharti Airtel. And joining us on the panel in the virtual mode is our eminent panelist, Mr. Paul Miller, Chief Technology Officer, Wind River. A very warm welcome to Mr. Paul Miller on the virtual mode. Can we also have him on the screen, please? And ladies and gentlemen, the time duration for this panel discussion is approximately 35 to 40 minutes. With those words, I hand over to Mr. Kunal Bajaj to kindly carry forward the proceedings of the panel discussion. Over to you, sir.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I have to, as customary, but definitely felt from the heart, thank Shashiji for organizing this. At least for me, I don't know if for everyone else, this is the first in-person or hybrid event in a very long time. And it's great to see so many old friends and colleagues and have a great panel of dignitaries here. Also great to be back in Delhi after a long time as well. I think there's a lot that we can learn from this upcoming panel. We've had some great presentations so far from Sham, as well as from Ben, and there's a lot of information that they've shared with us. And I think what we'd like to do over the next 30 or 40 minutes is basically try and understand from both the operator perspective as well as the vendor perspective, how does this all really boil down to what we can expect to see in India in the coming few years. Now we've had the announcement of the 5G auctions, and I think everyone's quite excited about that. The process has started. So it's now just a matter of time before all of these things start getting rolled out. And I think we all believe up here that Open RAN is going to play a very significant role in how the future of networks, technology are really going to get rolled out, especially in the 5G world. So to kick off, maybe what we can do is, Ben, since you've just given your keynote, I'm going to skip over you for now and start with some of the other panelists. I know that we've got Paul online as well. Paul, are you able to hear us properly?
Yes, I can. Hopefully you can hear me well.
Yes, absolutely. Great. So just be coming to you for a question shortly as well. Why don't we start with Saurabh, if you would like, if you have the microphone in front of you. As an operator, finally, you've heard different perspectives of what Sham had to say and what we heard from Ben as well. What do you, as you think about designing the future of Open RAN and 5G for Airtel, what do you really think is going to be the key benefit that we're going to see for Open RAN getting included into the network ecosystem for operators in India and for the environment in India? Microphone. Sorry.
Hello. Thanks, Kunal. Thanks to Shashi and Bharat Exhibitions for this organizing this event. My take, right? I mean, Kunal. So let me use an acronym. To probably give my perspective on the. And the acronym is actually India, INDI. So I in this stands for innovation and intelligence. The N over here is the new operating model, right? The opportunities which come from the new operating model. I mean, whether in terms of deployment, whether in terms of how we build the networks. And why is that? It is from the next, which is D, because it is disaggregated. And the next one, I would say the next I over here is the indigenous. Right, I think there's a lot of discussion on the Make in India, Atmanirbhar. So I think I probably will bucketize the next set of opportunities in that I. And the last is the A. A stands for automation, agility, and adaptability. Right. So to me, Open RAN, I think, could be really summarized in what India stands for. And hence, let me put that way that the opportunities that we see from an Indian context, we can probably divide this into the, supply and demand perspective. Let me first start with the demand, right? We have this huge task of building the 5G networks in a much relatively shorter period of time, right? We have taken decades to build the 2G, 3G, 4G networks, but that's not the time scale we definitely will be looking at, right? So I think India presents a huge and humongous opportunity from that perspective. And if you go to the supply side, I think all of us are very, I would say, aware of the fact that there is a very large Indian talent, which is not just in India, but if you look at the Indian diaspora across the world, Indian companies who are driving this innovation. So I would say on the supply side, there is a great opportunity, and which is towards the, Prime Minister Modi's vision of Atmanirbhar, Make in India. I think so. That's an opportunity which is coming from that perspective. And last but not the least, right? Of course, when you have more innovation and intelligence, right? How do we drive the overall productivity of the network, right? I think that's something which is key. And as operators, I think we are saying that we have to lead this innovation, co-create this with our partners and take benefit of this, right? It's not an easy journey, but I think that's a journey that we have to do together. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Saurabh. Why don't we go to your neighbor? So Rajesh, as you think about specifically what VIL is going to be doing, do you share some of the thoughts with Saurabh? Do you guys have a slightly different perspective on what you will be focusing on?
Hello, I'm audible. A very good morning to all, and thank you all the wishes for giving this opportunity. Yeah, I echo what Saurabh has said. I think we all know the Open RAN conceptually and architecturally it's pretty good. Its concept is very good. It brings a lot of innovations. It's disaggregating hardware, software, becoming hardware agnostic. And most importantly, the vendor ecosystem, which is shrinking a little bit because we see that in 5G market, some of the vendors is restricted in the market. So now it's going to shrink. So it's giving a lot of opportunity to evolve the vendor ecosystem. So we have the opportunity to expand beyond the few NEPs which is currently in the market. But at the same time, it has to be seen as, I think Shyam was highlighting, that all this innovation and the disaggregations and open source interface and all, it's architectural and theoretically it seems very good. And it will really bring a lot of new things, a lot of new services as API will get open. It has a new architectural element, a RIC. It's called RAN Intelligent Controller, which is immense, optimization capabilities and offering differential services to consumers. So that way it will be pretty good. But we have at the same time, we have the challenges around this. What is happening as this multiple integrations and the new element, complexity is getting also added. And this complexity is where we're talking about even system integrator coming in. And who has to bring this all together and the best of breed what we're talking about and to give finally the best performance. At the same time, the head messaging of the Open RAN was that, we'll bring the TCOs will lower down. And especially in the Indian market where ARPU is very low, data consumption is very high, we have to see that how the cost TCO can be bring down. And it's not only the CapEx, even the OpEx and even the energy consumptions, all those has to be seen. There is a lot of rooms to travel there. I think we're doing the trials with the Open RAN vendors and trying to see that how best and how we can accelerate this kind of what is the industry demand is, so that it can be really deployed. And it has to give the same performance, same robustness, same resiliency, as what the proprietary classical vendors already has provided. We see there is a gap in the features, parity, and giving the same performance. So yes, I think going forward, being open source, innovation bringing in, and API and a lot of software developers are getting opened up. So new features and will get evolved. If you see the 5G, so again, depend on what kind of architecture we evolving. So no doubt the incumbent and being the good 4G networks, there is a high probability that all will start with the NSA. And when we're starting with the NSA, it's a 4G going to be anchor network with the 5G. So Open RAN also has to extend it towards 4G, not only the 5G. That's only then will make more successful in the market. And infrastructure's perspective, I think it's very important as we have distributed the CU, DU, radios and all together, but finally it has to be all connected and has to be connected with the right latencies, right backhaul, front haul, mid haul and front haul. So the fiber infrastructure is going to be very important. I think the tower fiberizations and all those also has to come. So this all ecosystem, either infrastructures, fiber, your NSA architecture, ORAN in 4G, more innovations, robustness, resiliency, all has to come. It needs to be accelerated rather, so that it can be, because 5G is going to be there, right, very soon. So it can be really deployed and right consumer services can be delivered. Thank you.
Great. No, thank you so much, Rajesh. So Narendra, I'm just gonna come to you next. I think, we've heard a lot of good points, and, I don't think we can necessarily address all of them, because I think what between Saurabh and Rajesh, they've raised questions about the readiness of the ecosystem, about the fact that is there actually a lower TCO, is the infrastructure and the fiber ready? I think these are a lot of the points that even Sham and Ben had raised. But as one of the key players enabling the ecosystem, right? As one of the key partners of all of the operators and the rest of the players around this, what do you see as the process that one has to go through to actually realize some of these benefits? Because today we're still facing a very challenging road ahead. It's not we've just started and we have a long way to go. So what do you see as the roadmap to take this forward?
Good morning, everyone. I think it's a very nice questions that has been coming up from Kunal. And these are very valid questions in everyone's minds who is thinking about BI and Airtel and Jio, of course. And it's not just in India, even outside in different countries, be developed or developing, there's a lot of traction coming out of content standards. So coming on the maturity of the technology, because the maturity is very important to take decisions, and the telecom networks are like now 24/7 kind of networks. If technology is not matured, nobody is going to invest in that and take the risk of trying something new. And I am glad to announce that Mavenir has already implemented few networks. Number one is Dish Network in US, which is 5G SE network, where we have deployed 3,000 plus sites as of yesterday. And now we are deploying 200 plus sites every day going forward. So that shows the confidence that operator has put into this technology, because it has matured and it is going to take challenge of whatever expectation operators have from the vendors who are working on creating this ecosystem. So technology is not about just Mavenir, it's about the partnership, it's about the collaboration between multiple vendors. We have deployed our WAN system on hardware, which is coming from vendor A, the cloud infrastructure coming from vendor B, software is Mavenir, transport is coming from somebody else, or is from different vendor. So there are more than dozens of vendors working on the network, and everything has been aligned so properly and tested that there is no difference between a traditional and open vendor as perceived by the end customer. But at the end of the day, who is paying for these services? That is what is very important. CapEx, OpEx reduction is the highest priority, like Mr. Ras told, that TCO has to be low. And to achieve those kind of TCO, we need a critical mass. There has to be sufficient volumes generated on these vendors who are working hard to create an ecosystem. There are companies now, because of open standards, they can dream of creating radio unit, that nobody thought in India that can be developed in a traditional world of RAN. Nobody thought of creating any other product, that goes, for example, DU or CU, DU hardware, CU software. But now when I interact with different vendors within India, even outside, I see that people are taking up this challenge. People are coming up with low-cost hardware for DU. They are coming up with creative ideas how we can improve the software efficiency to deploy it on a minimum number of cores, so that you use your computing resources very efficiently, because that all adds to the reduction. And I'm very thankful to our operator friends, because they are pushing us really hard to achieve the objectives of reduction in the TCO and as well as improving the end customer experience. So when we talk about network deployment, I think CapEx, OpEx, we have talked about. Open RAN will definitely add to that, as long as we are able to achieve a faster deployment within India and outside. The role of system integrator that I think someone told about, that is very important here. And thankfully in India, we have a lot of resources, skill sets with cloud mindset. We have a very big software industry where we have resources who can work on this challenge of taking system integration of cloud data network. So if you have a software coming from company X, cloud provider is Y, radio coming from somebody else. Somebody has to put all these things together. Earlier in the traditional domain, operator has this mindset, and it was right mindset that, I am buying from vendor A, let him do all the services. And even if they are satisfied or not satisfied, they will not have much choice, because the technology was very, it was not open, it was not shared. Interfaces are not open. Even the processes were not open. So people like, I have an experience of hiring engineers. Somebody is, do you have Ericsson experience? Yes, you can come because I am using Ericsson equipment. Now those things are not going to happen when you deploy open RAN. Interfaces are open. You will have resources who have experience of working on these open interfaces. They will have experience of integrating these complex piece of puzzles that Shyam was talking about. If interfaces are defined properly and implemented clearly, I believe it is going to be a plug and play kind of thing, just like a Wi-Fi router. You buy a router, you come to your home, you install, give a power connection, put the IP address, and everything happens automatically. So we have a vision of achieving those kind of plug and play in the domain of open RAN deployment. And I'm sure that's not very far. That is the comfort once it comes to the operators, whether it's in India or outside. I'm sure this technology will take much faster to capture the market. And in fact, it will force those traditional vendors to open up their interfaces as well. And that way we will achieve the real vision of standard open interface based network flight, which meets the requirement of operators as well as the end consumers. When we talk about end customers, I think the experience of the network is very important. In today's discussion, Shyam put a very small note about radio optimization. And I think RS also mentioned about RIC. I think these things are very important because the intelligence that is required to optimize the network is already there. But unfortunately, in the traditional vendor domain, that information is not exposed to the outside world. So there is always tie, like if Airtel or Vodafone wants to optimize the network, they have to depend on the capability of that particular vendor. Or they have to source a customized solution, maybe based on some probes, and then run the algorithms to optimize the network through automation. Luckily, in open RAN standards, we have something called RIC, RAN Intelligence Controller, that collects the information that is coming from various switches of the network. You have a lot of reports, like there's counters, there is messaging that talks about how user is experience the network in terms of quality, in terms of signal strength. And all that information can be gathered, collected inside the RIC. And then RIC will run various algorithms, very powerful algorithms that goes into like 75 dimensional metrics. You can use Bayesian optimization to collect and analyze this data and come up with the recommendation that can be automatically applied in the network. So all this automation that comes through RIC and the intelligence that can be utilized through RIC will enable radio optimization much faster, much more easier, and help users to experience much better than what we are experiencing right now. And it will also reduce the cost of optimization that nowadays operator has to put. We still follow a lot of conventional mechanisms, like I still there are a lot of crash testing happening in the network. People are optimizing manually. But once Open RAN gets deployed, RIC interfaces are exposed to third-party applications, which are called RFs in the domain of Open RAN standards. Many software companies who are working on AI/ML, they can develop application to analyze this data and optimize the network. So that way they will contribute to the experience of the end user, because that is what is more important, and that is what ultimately pays for all these things to operators as well as to the vendors. So if we keep that into mind, I think Open RAN is a very good opportunity, not just to use the TCO, but also to enhance the user experience that will be there on the Open RAN network.
Great. Thank you so much, Narendraji. I appreciate the comments. I think you have tried to cover so many of the points that were raised. Why don't we go over to Paul online? So Paul, I think, with your guys' focus specifically on the edge, and specifically on how the edge can really be leveraged for this, how do you see the developments in Open RAN enhancing, say, the customer experience or enhancing what telcos can do, given the new opportunities or the new possibilities that open up on software or on computing or some of the things that we've been hearing from the other speakers earlier?
Thanks, Kunal, and good morning to everyone there. It's a privilege and honor to be with you today. The company I work for, Wind River, has really been honored to become a new entrant into the ecosystem that Open RAN has created that everyone's been discussing this morning. We have had for some time made investments in open source and created a new open source initiative in the Open Infrastructure Foundation, which is where the OpenStack technology was originally started. And that open source initiative is called Starling X. And the reason why we founded that with partners such as Intel is the need for a geo-distributed, disaggregated cloud technology that could support the unique footprint requirements and latency and optimization requirements of a 5G vRAN. The work that we've done there has also really been introduced to ORAN in Work Group 6, where we lead there for the OCloud infrastructure development, and really participate in the overall ecosystem as we bring together partners such as our friends here from Mavenir in network deployments globally. That effort has fortunately paid off in significant deployments at Verizon in the US, as well as the world's first Open RAN deployment with Vodafone in the UK. And Kunal, to answer your question, I think we see some tremendous opportunities here. While certainly this technology is going to dramatically reduce TCO, we see already TCO benefits approaching 30% with this new technology approach, enabled by extremely efficient infrastructure, single core consumption at the edge, single pane of glass management. As the session has discussed today, analytics and AI ops automation, orchestration, these are all key capabilities. But as we look forward, the real exciting future is going to bring new applications to this infrastructure. ORAN really creates the first business case that creates a justification for cloudifying the entire network from the core to the edge. And as the edge of the network becomes cloudified, this creates a new platform for service agility that, whether you consider it to be private 5G or OT-based applications for autonomous vehicles and manufacturing and such things, there's tremendous opportunities for new revenue creation on the same platform that's being used to build and deploy Open RAN and 5G in networks today. So that's where we see a lot of the excitement of the future. But obviously today, the technology is focused on initial deployment of ORAN and 5G in networks to create that foundation upon which in the future we'll build those new services.
Great. No, thank you so much, Paul. So, I think we'll, Ben, you had raised a whole number of points, and I think Red Hat is not new to trying to get multiple partners in an ecosystem to work together in a secure platform, in really being able to scale it. I think a lot of what we've heard, even what Shyam raised earlier about, who's going to be responsible for stitching all this together. Narendra also mentioned the same thing about creating multiple vendors coming together. And I think we heard the same from Paul as well. So, how do you see the the complexity of the fact that there now have to be multiple guys who are coming together onto a common platform who have to execute in real time all the time, right? It's not just an app, it's an actual network which is running out there. If an app goes down, yeah, people complain, but if your network goes down, then, it's more than complaints, and Rajesh his phone will be ringing off the hook. So what's your view on how you see the complexity of this coming together?
Look, I think the complexity, should not be dismissed, right? It's a complex thing that as an industry, we need to take time to work together on. I think the vision from the operators is going to drive what the industry is going to bring to those operators, right? So I think a very clear path and a clear strategy for the solution, and being able to articulate that to the partners, to bring the partners together, like together in one room, right? To buy into the vision, to understand that the work that those partners are undertaking is not something short-term. they're going to be partners for the next 5 to 7 years. You know, we are building a network that is going to provide in places lifeline solutions for customers. So I think the complexity is very large. What I hear in talking to operators in this region and across the world is, you know, the GSI becomes very important, right? So I think that shift, the paradigm shift now becomes, as we bring multiple vendors together, as they all buy into the strategy and the vision of the operator is going to now rely more on the GSI, right? We heard that from Shyam as well earlier on today. And I think, you know, that's an opportunity for the GSIs to step up in a way they haven't before. They now have an opportunity to deliver an end-to-end solution that is going to service internal workloads. But I think the exciting part adjacent to that is those Industry 4.0 workloads. And they're going to be really specific in terms of industries, whether it's healthcare, transport, financial services, or retail. The GSIs are going to be able to tap into that industry knowledge that they have, that speciality that they bring. So I think they have the opportunity to bring more to the table for the operator's benefit to help drive some of those new net new revenue streams. So for me, you know, I think it's not only the partners to deliver, you know, O-RAN or a 5G network, it's the partners that are also going to deliver those net new revenue streams. And I think there's an intersection in those partners, especially around the GSIs. And, you know, that's where we have an open partner ecosystem at Red Hat. You know, it's how we build our company over the last quarter century in terms of our technology being open. You know, we want to enable flexibility in choice when it comes to partners. And I think that becomes even more valuable and critical as we move into those Industry 4.0 workloads. You know, I like to think that there's no killer single application when it comes to 5G and Edge. It's going to be specific industry applications. So those partnerships are going to be really critical.
Great. Thank you so much, Ben. So Rajesh, we've got a few minutes left, and I think we'll try and do one more round of questions. But what do you see as the single most, if you can identify it potentially, what's the single most, a critical turning point in the evolution of this entire platform that will, you know, enable you guys to adopt it at scale? Right now, it's just experiments, it's trials. Where do we sort of just, turn the edge on that curve where this now starts becoming more mainstream?
I think the turning point will be how we quickly introduce in the brownfield as well, because we see the greenfield, like Narendra was talking about, from Dish and Rakuten, we also see. At the same time, unless until we really able to enter in the brownfield networks, which is, as we talked about earlier, the NSA, that will be the key turning point. But then you will get the scale, and the scale of economics is the must to really adopt. Because as we are on the same page actually. We are talking about the right technology, good innovations, a lot of opportunities, and a lot of maybe new services also, and consumer will finally get benefited. But unless until it will fit in, because you have very stunted classical RAN networks, which is delivering the right demands currently from services in the market. So you have to displace that as well. It's not that only the experiment and greenfield networks, it has to become in the brownfield, and then you can achieve the scale, and then you can offer all the benefits. I think that's the key.
Very good point. Absolutely. Saurabh, what about you? Is it the development of your in-house radio? Is it the overall, say integration to 4G and being able to ramp up? What do you see as the critical turning point?
I think let me add to what Rajesh said on that front, right? I mean, at Airtel, for example, I mean, our North Star is customer experience and the cost to serve, right? I think these are the two metrics which are, I mean, crucial for making any progress decision points on the Open RAN journey. I think that's one part. The second part is, if you look at the Open RAN, to me, is at the first phase of maturity. I mean, honestly speaking, if you open the Open RAN, it's not that open, right? I mean, you change some component, you have to do a lot of testing, validation, right? I think that's where, I mean, we have to reach that level of maturity where I think what Narendra mentioned about plug and play. I mean, the true plug and play can come into picture. We have to do, I mean, huge lot of automation, right, to make that happen. We have to have far more opening up of the APIs. I mean, all the standards put together, because there are still some things which are evolving. So I would say that, I mean, these are very important points which actually have to be resolved, right? I mean, and last but not the least, I mean, I would repeat what, I mean, Cham mentioned in the morning, right? I mean, the whole of it has to be lower than, or more than the, I mean, sum of parts, right? I mean, that's, I think, would be a real key. And however, having said that, I think we are saying that this is a long journey, right? And we have to do this together, right? I mean, it's not, I mean, something that operator can just complain about. And we are willing to, I mean, make that journey, right? But then I think the key technology partners, right? I mean, whether it is on the, I mean, hardware suppliers, whether it is on the software suppliers, whether it is on the cloud natives, I think that has to come together. And there's one more important point I think I just wanted to highlight. I mean, sometimes it is really overlooked, which is about competencies. It is not intersection of competencies, it is the union of the competencies which is coming up, right? I mean, just to illustrate, I mean, you'll find a very rarely a radio guy who knows anything about ABCD about cloud. You would find really a cloud guy who can talk about radio optimization. You would really find a, I mean, a transport guy who's able to, I mean, really give a real clarity of what is happening on the network, right? So I think it is, the other important aspect is this union of competencies, right? Is I think just to highlight that it's a huge task in front of the industry. I think if we have to make Open RAN a success, I think this is something which also has to be really worked upon, right? So to me, I mean, if we are able to solve these problems, then we will have the solution to those two metrics that I talked about, which is customer experience and the cost to serve, right? I think that will really, I mean, ensure that we are at the tipping point of the Open RAN journey person. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Arp. So Paul, I mean, you guys have done deployments. You've done it globally. You've got, solutions and networks in production. When do you see it happening in India? What do you see as the trigger for making what you guys are doing around the rest of the world happen here domestically? Sorry, you're on mute.
Apologies there. We certainly see as you go through the end of 2022 and the spectrum auctions that are happening shortly here into 2023 is very possible. There's a lot of work that's been done in these production deployments to bring all of these companies together in this diverse ecosystem of vendors that provide the complete O-RAN solution. And now we're at the point where a lot of that work has been hardened and proven in actual production deployment. We've learned a lot from that. In fact, it's beyond just a technology platform to support these applications, such as CU and DU and distributed edge sites. It's also about the operational tools. Some of the forum has talked about today the need for analytics, AI, and ML for day two operations to be able to monitor such a huge distributed system. In some of our networks with tens of thousands of vRAN and ORAN nodes deployed, running actual live production traffic, we found that automation and orchestration, single pane of glass, as well as capabilities to shrink down to a single node, but still have a converged control plane across that network are really critical capabilities to enable the operator to run this system on a day-to-day basis. And then, of course, capping that all off, you really need to have experienced personnel that understand the requirements for deployment and operations of these types of highly disaggregated and diverse systems that, frankly, as have been mentioned, are very complex, right? And so bringing pre-integrated solutions that are hardened into the market is really going to help India deploy these, in 6 to 12 months instead of the typical 18 to 24 that we used to see with initial technologies when they were first brought to market.
Great. Thank you, Paul. And I think, we'll wrap up with Narendra. I'll give you the final word. When do we see, maybe tens of thousands of radios, base stations on Open RAN in India for 5G happening as per you?
So tens of thousands are still happening outside India, and in India, I don't see that it is not going to happen soon. And right now, we are at the right timing. open standards have evolved. They have come to such a maturity level that now operators can take a decision, about 5G investments. I think they should not do the same mistake that they have been doing in the past, like selecting a traditional vendor and get logged into them on every kind of support. 5G auctions are starting, investments are going to come, and that is the best time for them to take a decision about supporting open standards based solutions, because that's the only way they can minimize the long-term TCO as well as get the benefit of innovation, cloudification, automation, orchestration. And it's not just for India, if all these ecosystem gets developed here, then India can become a source of supplying products and services outside India as well. So that way, if we don't do it in our own country, we cannot think of doing outside India. So I think timing is perfect. 5G investments are going to start. It's the right time to take the right decision. And I think vendors are ready, especially the Mavenir, we are ready to support all the operators. That's major challenge that everybody has in terms of looking at a new technology is that, is it right? Is it going to work or not work? All those doubts have been cleared. I think once we have like operators create an ecosystem for testing all the partners solutions. If testing is done properly, then deployment and rolling out them will not take time. As I told earlier, we are doing 200 sites a day in Dish. Why can't we do it in India? We can do it here as well. So it's the opportunity, if that's provided at right time, I think we can do that. And I'm sure in 2023, we will definitely have more than 10,000 sites in India. That's the vision we have. And with the support of our friends in Airtel, Vodafone, Jio, I think there will be much more than 10,000.
Great. That's fantastic. So that means we're only 6 or 7 months away from seeing this hit the ground. So thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you, Paul, online. Ben, of course, for the presentation that you had earlier, and finally Narendra as well. And Shashiji, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed for that interactive panel discussion session that we had. And we're extremely sorry we couldn't spare enough time for the question and answers with the audience. Or do we? No. So, and ladies and gentlemen, on that note, I would now like to invite Mr. Shashidharan, Managing Director, Bharat Exhibitions, to kindly propose the vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Dada. So first of all, once again, congratulations to the entire telecom fraternity. As the vendors are ready, the operators are ready. Let's do some business after 2 years. Now we lost a lot of business. We lost a lot of things, but good that Prime Minister has agreed and the cabinet has approved for the 5G auction. So let's do some business and prepare for the next 5G event, which we are doing on 7th and 8th of September. In the same hotel, we will be doing it. So I would like to thank the Secretary, Department of Telecom. He has taken out the time from his busy schedule to join us. He's supposed to come, but in the meeting, he got on in between, but still, he was very keen on this subject. So he was live talking to us and briefing us how the open run. I'd like to thank all the speakers, Shyam Madekar, Rajesh, Ben Panik, Narendra Rawat, Saurabh Mittal, Paul Miller, and special thanks to Rajat, who's our knowledge partner from BIF. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Without you, this event will not goes to the, to the second layer. So thank you very much, all of you, to joining. And now I request all of you to join the for a tea and a small tea break, and we'll join you back. Before that, I'd like to present a memento to all the speakers on behalf of Bharat Exhibitions, BIF and TSI DCI, who's our knowledge partners on this event.
Thank you, sir. We begin by presenting to Mr. Kunal Bajaj, CEO and co-founder, Cloud Excel, who was also our excellent moderator for the panel discussion session. We present to Mr. Rajesh Singh, Executive Vice President, Vodafone Idea. Thank you very much indeed, sir, for being here with us today. To Mr. Ben Panic, Vice President, Telco Media and Entertainment, Red Hat APAC. Thanks once again, sir, for that wonderful keynote address. To Mr. Narendra Rawat, Vice President, Technology, India and South Asia Region, Mebinir. Thank you once again, sir. To Mr. Saurabh Mittal, Head Network, Infra Products R&D, Bharti Airtel. Thanks a lot to you, sir. And to Mr. Rajat Mukherjee, Director General Broadband India Forum. Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce one book which is going to be inaugurated of this month on 27th at India International Center at 10:30. The book is titled Battles of Telecom by Sri A.K. Bhargavaji. Some of you know A.K. Bhargavaji, otherwise I will tell you. A.K. Bhargavaji used to be the Executive Director of MTNL, then moved to DOT and then to TDSAT member. He is here with us today. So this is going to be on 27th. And Bhargavaji, I'll request you to let the people see who wrote this book. This is A.K. Bhargavaji. Okay. So this book will be launched on 27th at 10:30 a.m. at India International Center. Thank you. Can I present this book to Ben Panic? Because he came all the way from outside before you say, I request you to present to him. Rest of the people, we can still send it.
Thank you very much indeed. And ladies and gentlemen, may I now invite all of you to kindly join us with refreshments and tea served outside. And I would also request all our delegates and guests to kindly spare a few minutes during the tea and lunch break to visit the exhibition stalls. And the tea break is for 15 minutes, requesting everybody to be back in time and seated for the next session. Thank you.
हम घर वाले हैं
Give me one.
Right back to us. Good God. Yes. What's daring honey? Thank you so much. We'll see if I have a house to go.
And fast. As a digital service provider, you are the backbone for billions of connections. The pressure to deliver innovative services and create new revenue is relentless. New opportunities like 5G networks introduce a whole set of unique challenges. How do you accelerate? How do you win? By owning the change. With an open strategy that lets you define your way forward. Getting locked into proprietary technology increases your cost, slows your ability to innovate, and confines you to your vendor's view of the future. Digital service providers committed to innovation understand that an open horizontal cloud strategy is the key to delivering new services faster, more securely, with more flexibility, and at a lower cost. These industry leaders work with Red Hat. This gives them a more secure, proven, fully open source telco-grade portfolio and a robust ecosystem that ensures that they can work with their choice of partners. This freedom and collaboration gives you the building blocks to create that next thing that changes everything. You know more change is coming. Own the change. Own your future. In the telecommunications world, change is constant and fast. As a digital service,
the age of 5G is here. By 2026, 5G networks will carry 54% of mobile data traffic globally. Industrial automation, driverless cars, remote medicine, video streaming, connected gaming, private networks. All of these advancements need speed, ultra-low latency, and scalability of next-generation networks. And they need to redefine network economics to be sustainable long-term. There's a need for a new network. Open, end-to-end, cloud-native, automated. Mavenir is building the future of networks and pioneering advanced technology, focusing on the vision of a single software-based automated network that runs on any cloud. As the industry's only end-to-end cloud-native network software provider, Mavenir is transforming the way the world connects. Mavenir is the trusted partner to accelerate network transformation for 250 plus communication service providers in over 120 countries, which serve more than 50% of the world's subscribers. MavCore, Mav Air, Mav Apps, Mav Edge, Mav Biz, Mav Scale. The building blocks of mobile network technology, all on a web-scale NFV platform with integrated AI and analytics that can run on private, hybrid, or public clouds. These virtualized networks have the potential to lower CapEx by 40% and OpEx by 34%. CSPs reduce network cost, generate new revenues, expand enterprise offerings, and protect those revenues while building a new, agile, multi-generational network that's ready for 5G. This is the future of networks. One network, any cloud, all software. Trust the future. Mavenir. The age of 5G is here. By 2026, 5G networks will carry 54% of mobile data traffic globally. Industrial automation,